I'm going to start the webinar at this point so that attendees can start popping in, and that way if Fantasy or Masha are entering as attendees, we'll be able to get them all sorted.
Hear you loud and clear. Hey there, guys. This is Noah. We will be starting in a few minutes here. So I hope everyone's ready for a great time.
This is Shika. Hey, Fantasy, since I'll be in the car, is it okay if I go first for the advocacy panel for
Oh
today?
yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you for letting me know. Sorry, I'm a little late. Is there anything else?
It's okay. No, you can go ahead, Noah, or do you want me to do the
I can do it.
Okay, awesome.
Hey guys, welcome to the Youth Advocacy Panel. My name is Noah, and I'm just here right now to lay down a little bit of housekeeping. So, if you want to put into the chat anything, you will find a little chat button, which is a word bubble in this case. And you can type in there and we will be able to see it in real time. And also, if you're having technical problems, please use that chat button. Otherwise, we won't be able to help as much as we can. If you are using closed captioning, there is a button. It will have CC on it, and we have our interpreter in the corner here. And if you are in a speaker view, all you have to do is pin both of our amazing interpreters today up. There will be 3 dots, and you will be able to click on those and pin them. We also will be having a survey at the end of this session. So if you would like, please fill it out so we can get any feedback and how to improve. And from this point, I'm going to turn it over to Shika.
Hello, everyone. This is Shika again. I'm excited to talk with you guys all. I spoke a little bit this morning, and to just let you guys know that we have a nice week-long agenda here, and to come back on Saturday. So today, we're going to talk about advocacy. And even though I live with my parents, I'm always advocating to be independent in my community. So I work here at Disability Link in Georgia. It's in the Atlanta area. And I am the COVID-19 supervisor and the Independent Care Waiver Program, ICWP case manager. So it gets kind of busy here because I'm part of 2 programs. I do advocacy at the state capitol and also in DC for advocating for people with disabilities that are blind and or visually impaired, because I'm part of the National Federation of the Blind here in Georgia, and we also have a national organization in Maryland. So we have conferences in July for the national conference, and each state has their own conference as well. So ours in Georgia was in October, a couple weekends ago, on October 8th to the 10th that weekend. I am independently working and use the bus and train, and sometimes my parents or friends give me rides as well. Some other ways that I advocate is by helping people to live independently that are on my caseload, and other types of organizations that I'm part of is this April conference, and also the AAPD, American Association of People with Disabilities. I help people with mentoring in the summertime, and also the NICO conference in July. It's National Council Independent Living. We go to DC and we advocate. So that's different ways that I advocate. What are some questions that you guys have?
Shika, this is Fantasy. Did you want to do questions after each person, or should we just do each panelist and then do questions?
Um, we can do a little bit of both if anyone has questions now or later. Because I don't think Masha came on. I'm not sure. So we'll have enough time.
Masha's not come on yet. I'm double checking to see if they sent. They're gonna be here in about probably 5 minutes.
Okay.
This is Fantasy because someone in the chat, Grace, said, "Hi everyone. Transportation is a big issue for me. No bus."
Oh, and we got our first question for the Q&A. Grace said or asked, "What do you recommend if there is no public transportation in the area?"
I would say, this is Shika. You can maybe use colleagues. That's what I use sometimes if my parents are not able to, or you can use like Uber or Lyft. But if that does get expensive, then you can apply for your nearby Marta Mobility. That's what we have. Or you can use the public bus or train. Those are some options. Or you can ask friends or maybe post on social media and ask if someone can give you a ride if you ask ahead of time.
Does anyone have any other questions they want to ask today?
And this is Shika. Also put some topics in the chat so then we can get some questions for you guys for Thursday's breakout session. Just a reminder for later in the week.
This is Fantasy. Thank you, Shika, for the reminder, and thank you, Noah, for joining us. I can go next if you would like, and then we can have Masha go. Masha jumps on.
Go ahead, Fancy.
Okay, sounds good. And Shika, if there are any other questions, I'll make sure to loop them back around. But hello, everyone. My name is Fantasy. I use she, her pronouns, and I am one of the panelists for the advocacy. And so we're just kind of sharing our story. It is rather informal, but if you have questions, chat. So I am 21 years old. I'm from Boise, Idaho. I grew up in Boise, and I think it was just really interesting. Idaho is pretty rural and not very diverse in general. So it gets a little bit hard living there with multiple intersecting and marginalized identities, such as being a young woman of color, having a disability, being low income. And so I was diagnosed when I was 12 years old. And I think that I was always a super social person. And I think just in my heart of hearts, I wanted to advocate for everyone and be friends with everyone and just be a really open and positive person. But when I was diagnosed in 2012, I definitely felt more of an urgency to advocate for myself, whether that was with my family, with the doctors, with my friends. My diagnosis was kind of abrupt to where I went to the hospital, like straight from class, and I was in 6th grade. And then I basically from there had to navigate the medical field, like being in inpatient rehab for a month and then being in the hospital for a month as well. Being 12, it was interesting because I didn't really know what to do. And I think I had like more of a medical model of disability internalized in me to where I was like, oh, I'm gonna be fixed and cured in less than 6 months, and that's how disability is. And I had this idea of like being an inspiration and overcoming. And as much as it was like innocent and had great intentions, that is not the way I think of it today. I don't think about becoming able-bodied. I don't think about, working out every day. Of course, I want to take care of myself and my health, but I think advocating for a more social and culturally acceptable model of disability. And so it's not looked at as something that you're hindering or like an impairment to you, but rather society is not fit for accommodating you and accepting other people with different identities. So I think that was the best thing about, I don't know, just connecting both the medical and social model, is that I wanted to advocate for more of a culturally and socially acceptable model. But in junior high, I went to a school that was pretty familiar with me. So like I moved to like 6 different schools, kindergarten through 6th grade. But in junior high, I actually ended up going back to a school where a lot of the students didn't know me. And so it was nice because I didn't have as much bullying or anything like that. And I also was just a pretty vocal person in general. So I was not going to let anybody like disrespect me or be negative, but it still does hurt, even if someone does come to you and say something negative, whether it's intentional or not, it's still hurtful, and it's still something that I want to advocate for. And in junior high, I was a part of some leadership programs, and I started an organization called Acts of Kindness, where it was kind of focused on disability, but also just in general of like being a kind person and having different acts around the school. And so that kind of helped me connect, let's just say like able-bodied people and disabled people, or all different types of identities. And then also I was in a leadership conference where I started a project around, and this, I would never really do this today, but it was called like basically learning how to be around people with disabilities. I think, again, as a young person, I had such a medical model that was internalized in me to where I was like, oh, people need to learn how to interact with different people. And, like it's everyone's responsibility, and it is. But I think I would more come at it as like, not people trying to understand people with disabilities, but people with disabilities being able to have more pride and acceptance in society. So yeah, that's just kind of also where my advocacy started in junior high. I definitely don't think that my disability completely defines me, but I do know that it really helped me be more resilient and advocative. And I got into activism. And basically from there, Idaho was like my place of starting my activism as a young person. I worked in a nonprofit, which was really helpful, of intersecting social justice and racial justice and disability justice. And then I wanted to get out of Idaho, and I wanted to continue my advocacy elsewhere. And I knew that California was pretty like quote unquote liberal and had a lot of social progressive identities. So I wanted to come to California. And so I did that. I came to University of San Diego. I will be graduating in May, but I've done a lot of advocacy on campus as well. Again, I started an organization on campus called Alliance of Disability Advocates. And that was like my first month of being on campus, just because I noticed a lack of communication and a lack of community and a lack of like acceptance with people with disabilities. And I didn't really know how to create community. And so that was like my first step in trying to find students that are like me and also move forward with disability justice. Sorry, I'm kind of talking a lot, but that's a little bit about me. And if you do have any questions, also let me know. But I'll be graduating, like I said, in May. And my advocacy definitely doesn't stop after undergrad. I want to be able to work somewhere in the disability justice sector or disability resources, whether that's in education, higher education, or K through 12 education, and just continue to be a resource. And so I'm really excited what the future has to hold. And advocacy is always on my heart and my mind. So I look forward to connecting with you all and seeing what you do as well. Masha, if you would like to go next, we kind of just talked about ourselves, opened it up to questions, but also if you'd like to go and be the next person, and then you can open it up to questions as
well. Yeah, thanks, Fantasy. Sorry, everybody, that I was a little bit late. I'm Masha Flynn. I am your Media and Outreach Chair for this year. But my advocacy journey kind of didn't start until I was in college. Not because I wasn't aware of advocacy, but just because I didn't really know where to start with my advocacy journey until I was in college. I did my freshman year of college at Utah State University in Logan, Utah, and I was an elementary education major at the time. And I had been an elementary education major for 3.5 years before I had switched. And then after my freshman year of college, I moved to Casper, Wyoming, which is where I'm from. And I went to Casper College, and they kept telling me, because they noticed how much I had a passion for helping people and trying to make change in my local area. So they were like, you know, why don't you go into social work? You seem like you would be a very great fit for it. And it's very, it was very diverse in the ways of what you could do as an occupation. But I was a little bit hesitant at first, just because I was adopted from Russia at 2 years old. And the one thing that my social workers had told me when I had told them that I was thinking about going into social work was, are you sure you want to do it? It's you'd have to have a big backbone for it emotionally. But I kind of noticed that kind of was where my heart kind of was leading me. And so in 2017, I switched to social work, and I actually got involved with my local SIL here in Wyoming, who I now work for as a peer specialist. So basically, when our consumers come in, I'm basically kind of a friendly face for them to talk to. And so I've been working for Wyoming Independent Living for 2 to 3 years now. But I honestly was very surprised at how many advocacy opportunities I would have here in Wyoming, considering we are such a rural state. Some of the advocacy projects that I am currently doing is I am on a advisory board for the city of Casper, Wyoming, to advise the city about people with disabilities, as well as to help put on events for disability awareness. What else? I am the current reigning Miss Wheelchair Wyoming for this year and last year. And that was put through by an organization called Miss Wheelchair America. They are an organization that helps men and women, well, I should say women mostly, of all abilities to teach about education, leadership, and advocacy. It's a nationwide organization, so there's women from all over the United States that have participated in nationals this past August. And we each have our own individual platforms of advocacy. My platform was Service Dogs, Much More Than Man's Best Friend. They educate, inspire, and help the next generation. Because eventually I would like to start my own service dog business and integrate it within the school districts here in Wyoming. Because I've noticed that the last few years, service dogs have kind of been a strange subject in a way. It's either, you know, we have a lot of fake service dogs or we just have a lot of access issues. So my platform was mainly based around, hey, these dogs may seem like normal pet animals, but they are so much more than what the public is seeing them as. And so I have gone around the state of Wyoming to teach people about service dogs and to teach them that, yes, they are special dogs, but they have a bigger purpose than what people see them to be. And the reason why most service dog teams slash people will tell you not to pet their service dogs. There's a huge reason for that. And I think that understanding that idea of it can be life-threatening if you do interact with a service dog without asking is kind of my main reason for my platform, because I personally don't have any like life-threatening conditions that can be a danger to, but I've known several people and several friends of mine that have service dogs for epilepsy and diabetic alert that can be dangerous if you interact with the service dog, because the service dog will miss an alert, and that can be dangerous to the handler and the dog as well. So I try and teach people as much as I can with my own service dog about, you know, what's the proper etiquette and stuff like that. I have trained my last 2 service dogs. My last service dog I had as a working animal for 2.5 years, or not 2.5 years, sorry, 8.5 years. He was 9 when he had to be put down. And then I am currently training my second service dog, who is a year old. And he will be my multi-purpose service dog. So meaning by that is I'm going to tell you right now, normally most handlers would not tell you these type of things, but I'm going to. So I suffer from anxiety and depression, but I also have what is called cerebral palsy. So I have a high cognitive, low physical form. And so my service dog, Scout, who is currently in training, he will eventually learn how to pick things up for me. He knows how to shut doors for me right now. And he's already been responding to my panic attacks and stuff like that. So that's kind of a lot of my main advocacy is about service animals. But I do a lot of different things all over the board. I kind of just, you know, when people need help or people need someone to come and talk, I'm usually the one that's first in line saying, hey, I'll be happy to come and chat. Just because that's been my passion, is advocacy and helping people to reach their full potential, or helping them to recognize their full potential. Because a lot of times I feel like society likes to underestimate people with disabilities when we are capable of so much, maybe even more than most able-bodied people. I know that many of the people that I've met through the April conference, including Fantasy and Noah and other individuals, I am very impressed with how much they are able to do within their daily lives. And there are some things that they can do that I couldn't imagine myself doing, but I commend them just as much. You know, it's all about learning from each other and realizing that the only race that you have to race is your own, and not with anybody else, and trying not to compare yourself. I'm one of those people that does that quite often, and I have to remind myself not to, because I have my own advocacy journey, just as Fantasy and Noah do. But that's a little bit about me. If you guys have any questions or anything, I will be more than happy to leave my contact info in the chat and be more than happy to answer any questions as well.
Thank you so much, Masha and Fantasy. And now I'm going to open the floor for people to ask questions.
Noah, I apologize for interrupting, but what about Shika?
Shika went earlier because she
Okay.
had to get here and leave her work earlier. So
okay, I apologize.
I'm here, just in the car, so it might be a little noisy.
Fair enough.
If you guys want to, if you're on phone, you can press *9. If you're on keystrokes, you use Alt H, I want to say. But if you want to, you can raise your hand and we will be able to unmute you so you can ask us a question personally.
It's Alt-Y.
Alt-Y. Thank you, Shika.
This is Fantasy. I just put a question in the panel a little bit before, or in the chat, sorry. But I wanted to ask it to all of the panelists. Although I am a panelist, I think it'd just be interesting for us to share a little bit about this. So when you think about like navigating, or when you think about advocacy and how you maybe navigate in multiple spaces, what was one of the most accessible and accommodating spaces you've navigated with your disability? And what was the most challenging space that you've navigated, whether it's physically or, you know, mentally or academically or professionally? Hopefully that makes sense. I can go, or I can model the answer first, if that's helpful. But I think that one of the most, I guess I'll start with like one of the most challenging spaces for me has been higher education. I'm a first generation college student, and so I didn't talk with my family much about college or higher education, much less talking about that topic with a disability, because they wouldn't know that. Like, one, they didn't go to college, and two, they don't have a disability. So I think that I just wasn't really prepared before I came to higher education. And college is pretty ableist, if I do say so myself. There are not a lot of accommodations here, at least at the University of San Diego. I feel like they can get away with not having access to some spaces or places or buildings, or not having as a great disability resources center because they're a private Catholic school. And so they don't have as many ties to the law, at least from my understanding, than a public school, because public schools receive more public funding or government funding. And so sometimes it gets harder when you go into like these private places. I mean, even thinking about like churches, or thinking about like, I don't know, just different private companies that may not have to adhere to the ADA. This was a bigger challenge when I was in my wheelchair, because a lot of the spaces would not be like physically accessible for me to navigate. There are places on campus, buildings that still don't have elevators, and I don't even know why my school is not getting sued for stuff like that, because that is so not okay. You know, I can use like comedy as my relief, but really like it's really disheartening, because there are some people, you know, navigating these spaces that don't have maybe the privileges that I do, of like using two canes or going up a couple steps, because sometimes there's not even ramps. So I've done my fair share in these 3 years to advocate for accessibility. But I think one of the easiest places or most accessible has been like my own home, or like my family's places. Like, I just feel so myself. I feel so comfortable. Even if a place like my sister's house isn't accessible, like there's stairs to the second floor, I know that I can always ask my sister or my mom to like help me, and I don't feel like a burden, which is different from like other public spaces where I might feel like a burden to strangers. So that's just my answer. I don't know if y'all want to answer this question, but
I can go next. I think that's a really great question, Fantasy, for sure. I think for me, it's been a huge combination of a lot of things in terms of like non-accessibility. A lot of times for me growing up, it was more of me getting in my own way of what I was capable of. Because I'm 26 now, and like when I was a teenager, I didn't know all I was capable of. I wasn't aware of all the resources that were available to me. But I think for me, I'll kind of go from the better to the worst. For me, I think the most accessible accommodation I've had was actually at Utah State University. That campus really was built kind of enough to help me learn how to be a college student with a disability. and learn how to combine the two in the most, I guess, effective manner possible. When I was going to Utah State, because it's a very open campus, and shockingly enough, it has a huge, and I mean huge, what's the word? Population of disabled people, actually. And a lot of the times too, I was asked to be a part of conversations with able-bodied students in like the OT program or the science program, to just kind of get an idea of what it was like to be a person with a disability. Mainly with the science program, it was more of, you know, how does your brain operate in certain situations because of your disability, and stuff like that. I think for me, that experience, my first year of college, really helped me to see of what I was capable of independently by myself, because I hadn't lived on my own in 24 years. And so that really helped me to understand my own potential. But I think kind of there's two to three areas that have been kind of the most challenging for me of now at Casper College, and it's taken me a long time to get them to understand where things are. Granted, I am not a Casper College student anymore. I graduated last spring with my associates. But I think for me, when I first moved colleges, I was told by the disabilities director at the time that I was the first physically disabled person on that campus in about 6 years. So for me, that was a huge culture shock. And that was a huge, like, okay, things have to somewhat change. Things have to be communicated. And also on top of that, you're dealing with weather. And that was kind of one of those things. It's like, okay, what changes can I help make? And I'm going to give the interpreters a second. So for me, I think once I had talked with the accessibility department here at Casper College, I was actually doing a paper on accessibility for one of my classes. And by the time I got done talking with him, which was about 2 hours later, he had about 2 full pages of notes. And he's like, I had no idea. And I was like, okay, this is showing improvement. This is showing that they're wanting to know what's going on. And that all of that stuff that I had done within the college had also branched out to me being able to talk to being able to expand my advocacy out into the public sector, so that people could get to know somebody with a disability and get to know just the disability community in general. And so I think for me, sometimes, especially in as rural areas we're in here in Casper, there are times where I have a little bit of a weight on my shoulders, and I try not to remind myself of that, because and the reason why I say that there's a bit of a weight on my shoulders is because here in Wyoming, a lot of the disability community are older than myself, but also they are almost fearful to say something because they're concerned about their benefits. They're concerned that if they try and say something, something's going to go awry and they're going to get what they've worked so hard for or what they've earned taken away from them if they say something bad or negative. So unfortunately, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but for me, then it's like, okay, then if you're, you know, if you're not going to speak up, I'm gonna, one, teach you how to speak up for yourself and stand up for yourself. But two, I'm also going to be a partner in you trying to make change for something. So, I mean, that's kind of been my thing, really, is kind of just all that rolled into one.
All righty. Thank you again, Masha and Fantasy and Shika, for answering. I saw what Shika posted in the chat, but do you guys have any questions for us on the panel? Because we would love to answer them.
This is Shika. Can you read to everyone what I said? Can you please read some of the chat stuff?
Hey, Evan, would you mind giving me a hand with reading the chat?
Yeah, definitely. Shika, how far up would you like us to go? I don't know how much of it you were able to get off of your reader or not, but we can go back, I would say, at least 8 minutes, just at least to when Masha maybe has started talking and everything.
Okay, I'll just quickly say mine is that I would say work and school in my home is accessible, and not accessible would be just in like large crowds or like clutters.
Got you.
Evan, would you mind reading some more of the chat for us?
Definitely. I was just getting to the place where I think would be good to start from when I'm pretty sure Shika had to cut away or may not have been able to keep up. So starting with Youth Lead NC, she also said she had a difficult time with college. It was ironic that my professors were more accommodating than disability service officers themselves. Fantasy had replied to that saying, yes, she did feel that same thing. Grace T, I am having a hard time with online school. I prefer to be on campus. And I'm sure that you are not the only one feeling that struggle right now, Grace T. Shika had replied with, the most accessible is my work at home. My college is mostly accessible. Least is too much clutter and everyone grabbing my arm. Kayla also mentioned that when I was Little Nash Rocky Mountain School wanted me to go to Bailey Elementary instead of Spring Hope because I live in Bailey. The school in Bailey was not handicap accessible. My mom fought to keep me at Spring Hope. She got in touch with Jess Helms. He called the school and said that I was going to Spring Hope. I even got the school in Bailey tore down and rebuilt a school that was handicap accessible. Wow, what a story. That is awesome. And that one was sent to us by Kayla. That is amazing. And North Lead NC said, never mind, I didn't see a Sarah in the chat, but I know my first name doesn't show. But yes, we're pretty much all caught up with the major things. One from Jacqueline McFarland. I'm interested in your SIL youth programs. What's getting good attendance? So there's a good question for all the panelists.
This is Shika. I'll go first. So at Disability Link, we have different workshops. So maybe we can get together later, or you can look at our website, Disability Link website in Atlanta. We provide workshops for different topics, and you can join them all on Zoom.
So I know for me, I don't know, because Wyoming does have a youth sort of program. We're trying to branch out a little bit more. But as of right now, a lot of our stuff has been on Zoom just because of the pandemic. But like a lot of stuff that we've been doing is mostly peer support and disability support. But eventually, hopefully, once we kind of get our feet underneath us, we will be able to kind of open up more of our youth programs once again, because I was working on that type of stuff prior to the pandemic. So hopefully sometime soon, we'll be able to get back to that. But I know that prior to that, we had been talking about trying to do like a video game night or something, just to kind of get our youth getting to know each other and knowing that there are people just like them out there. So kind of doing those type of support groups, and kind of just also doing maybe like a budgeting program to kind of teach youth about how to budget once they're out of high school, or if they're in college, teaching them how to do a budget. Just those type of different things. But
this is Fantasy. Yeah, thank you for that question. I'm not directly involved with any like direct like still youth programs. I know that one of my first like I guess disability focused and community focused programs was a youth leadership forum that I did in right before college. So basically in high school. And it was like one of my favorite programs. So it was in Idaho. It's called the Youth Leadership Forum. I think they have them in other states as well. It just depends where you are and what the timing is. But mine was in the summer. And then that connected me with staff that knew about April actually. And then I got connected with April, and then also was more familiar with SILS and SLIC centers, and then also just disability resource centers. So now that I'm in San Diego, I just kind of look out for disability resource centers in the community. But yeah, I think that's the best thing to do, is just get involved in one of the more national organizations and see if there's any youth programs. I was also on the board for April last year, which was really helpful to be involved with youth across the nation and across the board. This year, I'm not on the board necessarily, but I am still helping and staying connected. So I think that's the best way to stay connected. And hopefully with our contact information, you can reach out to more of us and we can get connected.
All right, thank you again. We do have a question in our Q&A section from Grace T. And Grace asks, how did you get a service dog?
so, and Grace, I was gonna give you my contact info for that. It really kind of depends on your situation. For me, so there's two different sides to kind of the service dog world. There's facility trained dogs, and then there's owner trained dogs. Facility trained dogs, most of the time, they're dogs you have to raise money for, because they're thousands and thousands of dollars, because they specially train the dogs for certain tasks. And usually for a facility trained dog, and even for an owner trained dog, the training process can take anywhere from a year to 2 years. And then also, I mean, there's pros and cons to both. with the facility trained dogs, you're usually on a waiting list, whereas with a owner trained dog, you can pretty much start training immediately. With both of my dogs, I did choose to do owner training. However, the one thing with that is it's going to take a lot more time and a lot more patience. And that sometimes is not ideal for everybody. For my situation, I actually like it a little bit better, just because I'm able to build a better connection with my dog than I would say a facility trained dog. The other thing with facility trained dogs is that they will have you, once you are accepted, or I guess evaluated for a service dog, you will end up being the next person on the waiting list. They will say, okay, we need you to come up for 2 to 3 weeks of, training. And that's kind of where you end up getting matched with several different dogs, and sometimes pre-matched with a dog. And that's where a lot of your bond is kind of started. But a lot of times it doesn't always work out. It's not that I don't agree with owner train or facility trained dogs, because there are some great companies out there, such as Canine Companions for Independence is a really great one. Another one that I really love is Canine Assistance. There's just a whole lot of different factors, and it really kind of just depends on your personal situation and what you need the dog for. And whether you, and I don't mean to say this in a bad way, but whether you have the time and patience to be able to take care of a service dog, because speaking from personal experience, they can be a lot of work. I wouldn't change it for anything in the world, because he's helped me a ton. But at the same time, it's like having a toddler on a leash. It's like having a 2-year-old. So there's a little bit of those drawbacks, but as long as you're able to kind of know what your daily lifestyle is like, it may be a good fit. And the best thing I can say too is talk with your doctor, talk with your psychologist if you have one, and say, hey, I'm thinking about having a service dog. Would I technically qualify for as a doctor's note? Because that's the one thing that most facility trained companies, as well as most higher education in certain areas, are going to ask you for, is just a doctor's note clarifying why you need the service dog and stuff like that. Obviously, I've given out my contact information, Grace, so if you'd like me to kind of go into that further, I'd be more than happy to send you an email.
This is Shika. Now I can be louder. I'm back home from work. There's also my friends have is like guide dogs. So you can also look into that too if you need that for people that are blind or visually impaired too.
Thank you for your question, Grace, though. I really appreciate it.
Alrighty, this is Noah. Do we have any other questions? Because we have about 10 minutes left for all of our amazing panelists today to answer whatever questions you have of us.
Yeah, this is Shika. I can say some more about my advocacy stuff if anybody missed it in the beginning. Basically, I would just say that just to be open-minded and ask the person what assistance they need, because sometimes when it's a familiar place like my dorm room or like my home or at work, you don't really need assistance. But when it's a unfamiliar area, then it can be a little bit inaccessible. So you just have to try to be positive and let people know that you need some direction or some verbal cues of where to go, right or left, like in the hotel room or at the airport, stuff like that.
Any other questions, guys? Because we would love to hear them. If you would like to raise your hand, we can unmute you and you can ask us a question.
Don't be shy, guys. We don't bite, I promise.
This is Shika. I can just go through the rest of the agenda if you guys like, just for a refresher. We have tomorrow, Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, is talking about moving out. So come join that. And there'll be some more advocacy stuff there. And then Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, is going to be the ableism speaker. And then Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern, we have our breakout session. So just let us know any topics or any discussion things you would like to talk about. We'll have different breakout rooms. And then Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern is going to be just wrap up and talk about our stories again. And then 4 p.m. Eastern, around like 4:15 p.m. is going to be the award ceremony, and then also do the evaluations and come back Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern to wrap up for the youth. So excited to meet you all. It's Shika.
Thank you so much, Shika and Masha and this fantasy. I appreciate y'all for letting me speak. Thank you and have a great event too.
I would also like to real quick just mention that we do have evaluation after this session, and we would love for you guys to fill it out. And also, if you have any topics you want to put down in the chat, we will take a look at them for our breakout sessions and see which ones we will be able to cover on Thursday.
And like my fellow panelists have said, thank you so much for all of your questions and all of your inquiries. And thank you to Shika and Fantasy for your wisdom and your knowledge. I love getting to work with you too, so it's always great to have that conversation with you guys. So.
Oh, we have a question from Kay. Where do you see April going for youth?
That's an interesting question.
This is Shika. I would say we would encourage more ideas and more people on the executive board. This year it was just Masha and Noah and I, so it was just 3 of us. I think it would have been harder if we were in person to do like fundraising and more things of inviting more speakers and stuff. So I would definitely encourage everyone to fill out the applications, and we'll talk more about it on Saturday, but please apply to be on the executive board so we can make a stronger and better conference next year in person so we can get some more ideas. But I would say thinking about in the future, I would just say to have more collaboration with more youths throughout the US, because everyone has different ideas and perspectives. So I'm open to all, and hoping to run again for the executive board. So thank you, everyone.
I would
I was just going to mention too, this is Evan Shockley. Also wanted to kind of mirror what Shika had just mentioned too, with by mentioning that the youth sector of April has also just been the receiving hands of a grant in which we are going to be able to give out a lot more youth registration applications and everything like that, scholarships to be able to attend the conference in general, as well as hopefully employing a youth in April as well, going into the future. So there is that opportunity as well directly with April. And sorry to interrupt you, Masha.
You're good, Evan. I would kind of just echo what Shika said, but also, you know, speaking from experience, I know that certain things can be scary, especially for when you're kind of just barely starting out and knowing about youth and how to do advocacy and all that kind of stuff. Don't be afraid to do it, really, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know how much it can actually help you. I know for myself, a lot of when I started, I was very nervous, very unsure, especially since most of the advocacy stuff that I do, I'm usually the youngest in the room. But you know, don't be afraid to jump in and do things, because you never know how much your opinion is going to matter to the group of people you're working with. And especially with April youth, please like join the executive board, because I will tell you, I've learned so much from the people that I've worked with the last 2 years, about just how to be a good leader and how to be a better communicator with people. It's a very good experience to have, and it will definitely help you grow. So I would highly encourage applying for the executive board.
This is Shika. I would agree in taking risks, because I didn't think I'd be a good supervisor, but I just thought about it, you know, prayed about it, talked with parents and people that you trust. And on the executive board, we do text each other, have a group text, and we call each other, including being on the Zoom call. So it's not just once a month we talk multiple times throughout the months through text or calling. So we understand that everyone has a busy schedule. So it's good to try and have a good community in April and in the disability community. So we would love to have you.
I also did see that there is one thing in the question Q&A that Andy asked if Noah could send some of the questions people asked so she can help answer some of them as well.
I can if needed, but I think so far with all the questions that we have had today, it's been pretty good. We've been able to answer them pretty effectively and efficiently. So I'm not sure how many questions. There's only 2 to my knowledge that we answered live, and we're really close to the end as well.
This is Shika. So now that we are at the end, what are some topics you guys would like to discuss on Thursday? If you could please put that in the chat so we can come up with the questions by the end of the day today, or maybe by tomorrow, to give to Sierra or to the moderators and the people doing the breakout sessions.
But yeah, if you guys can give us some topics for our roundtable discussions for Thursday, that way we can kind of make those decisions.
But again, thank you guys so much for coming out and spending time with us in this amazing workshop that we've hosted. I'd like to thank the panelists, Masha, who is an amazing person to work with, honestly. And Shika, I worked with these people since, oh gosh, 2020, when I first really joined the advocacy panel or the steering committee here. But once again, please also fill out the evaluation sheets. And thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you guys again real soon.
Thanks, everybody.